The wind sweeps across the English countryside like a restless tide, bending tall grass and rattling the old wire fences that run alongside the abandoned railway track. Midnight clouds roll low, heavy and swollen, swallowing any hint of moonlight. A solitary figure walks along the rusted line boots, sinking into wet soil, flashlight trembling slightly in hand. The rails hum faintly beneath the earth, though no train has run here in decades. Not since the disappearance. They call it the Vanishing Train Mystery. It happened on October 14th, 1939, a date that should have faded into the chaos of that wartime year. Yet history never managed to bury the strange tale. An entire locomotive, its crew, its passengers, its cargo departed Langford Station at 3:12 p.m. and was scheduled to arrive at Dunwich Junction by 3:46. It never reached Dunwich. It never passed any intermediate signal boxers. It never collided, derailed, burned, or exploded. It simply vanished into the countryside. Not a bolt, not a wheel, not a body. Nothing but silence, stretching across the rails like a second skin. The journalist moves along the track slowly, their breath visible in the cold dusk. They've spent the last 6 months gathering fragments of the story, archival reports, police notes, letters written by passengers who never arrived, testimony from families who never found closure. Yet every document seems to contradict the next, as if the event refuses to settle into a single shape. Some accounts describe fog so thick that train lamps glowed like submerged lanterns. Others say the sky was clear and blue. One witness swore they saw sparks shoot into the air moments before the train vanished. Another claimed they saw nothing at all, just empty rails where a train should have been. The journalist steps onto one of the wooden sleepers. The wood groans under their weight. Moss swallows the edges of the track. The rails bend slightly inward, almost imperceptibly, like two metal lines drawn toward an invisible center point. The missing train was officially registered as Engine 94, a coal-fired class for locomotive pulling 3 passenger cars and 1 cargo carriage. On board were 22 civilians, 4 railway workers, and the engineer, Thomas Gray. His final telegraph, transmitted 10 minutes before the disappearance, recorded nothing unusual. En route, running slow due to fog. All fine. Then silence. Not static. Not distortion. Silence like someone cut the world's audio track. The journalist continues walking until they reach a stretch of track where the terrain dips slightly. According to the old case files, this area was searched relentlessly in the aftermath. Hundreds of volunteers marched through the reeds and marshes, dragging hooks and ropes, looking for wreckage. Aviation teams flew overhead. Dogs swept the landscape. Not even the smallest scrap of cloth was found. A rusted signpost tilts sideways at the edge of the path. It reads. The journalist sets down their equipment and unfolds a yellowed map of the region. In 1939, the rails were newly extended to cut through this marsh sector, a shortcut planned to reduce regional travel time. But locals at the time insisted the marsh was wrong, a place where compasses spun, animals became skittish, and fog rolled in, even during summer heat. They called it the Low Moor Vela place, where landscapes change subtly from one day to the next, like shadows shifting when nothing moves. The journalist kneels to inspect the rails more carefully. The metal is slightly warped here, as though heated from below long ago. Not melted, but soften-like. A brief but intense heat had passed through it, yet no burn marks exist. No signs of fire, just a faint ripple in the steel. They run their fingers along the rail. A static pulse tingles through their skin. The air grows colder. They stand sharply, scanning the horizon. Fog drifts in from the north, thick, swirling, unnatural. It spreads too fast, curling around the reeds and swallowing the track behind them. The temperature drops again, and the journalist's breath pours out in ragged puffs. Their recorder clicks on, documenting the shift. Old reports detailed fog at the moment of the disappearance, but only some. Others say the weather was clear, yet the journalist now sees fog rolling in like a tide, crawling with intent. They step back, hand tightening around their flashlight. The fog thickens around a distant shape, something metallic glinting further down the track. Just a shimmer at first, then more defined. A curved silhouette, a narrow frame. A railway signal. The journalist approaches cautiously. The signal tower stands crooked, its metal frame pitted with rust. The light fixture hangs from a fractured bracket, but the glass lens looks wrong. Too clean, as if wiped recently, as if used. They brush their thumb across it. The lens is strangely warm. A faint clicking noise sounds inside the housing. The journalist steps back. The signal light flickers dead for 80 years, yet flickering faintly like a dying heartbeat. They whisper into the recorder, describing every detail. The flickering intensifies. The signal clicks again. Then the metal around it begins to tremble softly, not from wind but from vibration. A familiar rhythmic pattern, rail vibration. Like something heavy traveling along the line. The journalist freezes. The tracks begin to hum low at first, then louder. The fog ahead swirls violently as if something massive is carving a path through it. The hum deepens into a rumble. The rails shudder. A train. An impossible train. The journalist stumbles backward, hands shaking. The vibration thickens. The fog swells. A faint whistle echoes through the landscape, not clear, but distant, warped, like a sound underwater. They raise their lantern. The fog parts for a moment. For a heartbeat, a silhouette emerges, towering, curved, metallic. The headlights glow dim through the fog, pale and distorted. The journalist's breath catches. In their chest, they take a step forward, half in terror, half in disbelief. The train continues rolling silently, wheels cutting through the mist without sound. Its surface looks wet, not with rain but with condensation, as if it has traveled through cold depths. The windows are dark, but one window one flickers with faint motion. A face pale, blurred, watching. The journalist's skin prickles. They call out, "Hello, can you hear me?" The figure does not move. The train begins to slow. The vibration softens. The fog wraps tightly around the carriages, swallowing them piece by piece until only the faint hum remains. Then silence. The fog disperses. The rails lie bare. The train is gone. The journalist collapses onto their knees, gasping. Their recorder continues running. They replay the audio. The device captures nothing but wind. No rumble, no whistle, no signal, flicker, as if the event existed only for the journalist. They rise shakily. They need answers. At the local archive building, dust coats, archival files stacked on metal shelves like forgotten tombstones. The journalist requests all documents related to the railway line extension, focusing on rumors of electromagnetic anomalies. The archivist, an elderly woman with a stern posture, hesitates before retrieving a locked drawer. She hands over a folder marked with a faded stamp. Classified. Railway Disappearance Inquiry 1940. Inside are pages of testimonial fragments, sealed letters from military engineers, and a series of denied requests for further excavation. One letter in particular stands out. It is from an anonymous inspector, dated January 1940. "I cannot in good faith sign off on the official explanation. The fog that day was unlike any I've seen. The rails vibrated long after the search teams left. My compass needle spun wildly. Whatever happened wasn't mechanical failure. Space felt displaced." Another Lethrin signed, undated, lies folded behind the first. "I saw the train 2 months after it vanished. It passed behind the veil. No sound, no steam. Everyone on board stared out through the windows, not at us. Through us." The journalist's pulse quickens. They turn the page and find a photograph, grainy, blurred, barely discernible. A line of fog, and inside the fog, a faint shape resembling a train carriage. It could be a trick of light, a coincidence, or proof. The journalist continues digging through the archive late into the night, piecing together a pattern from 24 incomplete reports. All suggest the same thing. The marshland was unstable, not geologically, not electrically. Something deeper, something connected to old local folk tales, describing lights in the fog, phantom carriages, and voices echoing across the moor. One legend tells of a thin place, a boundary between worlds where lost travelers wander forever, unless guided back. An old railway worker once said the marsh doesn't like new paths being forced through it. The journalist returns to the track the next evening. The fog is already forming too early, too thick. The rails hum faintly beneath their boots. This time, they stand their ground. The hum grows stronger. The fog vibrates with low, pulsing energy. A whistle cuts through the air, sharp, mournful, unmistakably real. The train emerges again, clearer than before. Engine 94, coated in condensation, metal groaning faintly. The wheels roll slowly, as though moving through deep mud. The journalist raises their lantern high. A figure appears near one of the windows. Then another, and another. Passengers pale, motionless, staring outward with hollow eyes. The journalist yells for them to respond, but their faces do not shift. They look trapped behind a layer of frost, suspended in a moment that never ends. The locomotive approaches. A shadow forms in the fog near the engine, tall, human-shaped, standing on the front platform. Its features are obscured, but its hands grip the rail tightly. The posse matches descriptions of one man, Engineer Thomas Gray. The journalist calls out his name. For the first time, the figure moves. Its head turns slowly toward the journalist. The face is blurred, distorted like wet ink. The mouth opens, but no sound comes out. Instead, the fog around him contracts sharply, pulling inward as if inhaling. The train begins to accelerate. The journalist steps backward, stumbling onto the grass. The fog swirls violently, and the locomotive's outline flickers solid, then transparent, then solid again. The passengers' faces smudge into streaks of pale light. The journalist sees the shadow of Thomas Gray raise one arm, pointing down the track toward the marsh. Then the train surges forward. Wind blasts across the field. Fog explodes outward. The train races past. But instead of continuing along the rails, it veers impossibly off the track, not physically turning, but phasing sideways like a mirage sliding across glass. The carriages grow translucent, ... The headlights dim, ... The wheels dissolve into vapor, ... And then, with a final flicker, gone, ... The journalist stands, shaking, heart pounding, lungs burning in the cold night air. They approach the spot where the engine vanished. The grass is pressed flat in a long, narrow path, as if something massive recently passed through it. But the rails remain cold and still, unstressed. Something tugs at the journalist's attention. A faint sound, a whisper carried by the wind. ... They kneel, pressing an ear close to the rail. A distant hum vibrates through the steel. ... Multiple voices layered, faint, echoing from far below. The journalist follows the sound down the line until it fades. At the end of the path lies an abandoned culvertan old drainage tunnel that predates the 1939 extension. The entrance is half buried beneath mud and reeds. They kneel and shine their lantern. ... Inside, carved into the stone, barely visible beneath moss, are marks, vertical scratches grouped in clusters, like tallies. ... Dozens of them. ... Hundreds. ... Some carved deeply, some faint, some overlapping. The journalist's throat tightens. ... Someone had been trapped here. ... Someone had counted days. Then something else catches their eye. ... Stuck between two clusters of tally marks is a torn scrap of fabric, faded blue. Uniform blue. ... Railway crew, standard issue. ... The journalist pulls it free. The fabric is brittle, old, frayed at the edges. They hold it up to the lantern light. Sewn on one corner, in tiny hand-stitched letters, ... double quotes. Gray, their breath stops. ... They stand abruptly, stumbling back from the tunnel. The fog gathers behind them once more, rolling fast. The rails tremble. The signal tower begins to flicker, its dead circuitry pulsing with phantom electricity. The hum builds. ... The ground shakes. ... The The fog splits open. This time, it charges toward them. They leap aside as the phantom locomotive barrels past, the wind tearing at their clothes, the lantern nearly ripped from their grip. The train screeches not loudly, but eerily muffled, like sound passing through water. The journalist watches as the carriages slide further ahead. ... But something is different now. The last carriage, the cargo car, jerks violently. The metal distorts, bulging outward. A long crack splits the side. A hand presses out from within, stretched, pale, clawing against the metal. The journalist stumbles backward in horror. The hands withdraw. The crack seals. The train rolls on, becoming transparent once more, dissolving into fog like it was never there. Silence. Then the journalist hears footsteps behind them. They turn back, toward the track. Standing in the center of the rails, half shrouded in mist, is a figure. Tall, motionless, wearing a worn railway engineer's uniform. Thomas Gray. His face is shadowed. His skin seems to flicker between solid and translucent. His mouth opens slowly. This time, a sound escapes. A whisper, strained, urgent, distorted, not lost. His voice barely rises above the wind. We changed tracks. The journalist's pulse races. What does that mean? Gray lifts one trembling hand, pointing not at the rails but at the fog itself, swirling like a corridor. Train can't stop, he murmurs. We're stuck. Between. His words disintegrate into static. The rails vibrate once more briefly. Then stillness. Complete stillness. At the crossing where the track meets the country road, the journalist stops. A fresh indentation marks the mud beside the rails, deep, narrow, unmistakable. A train wheel imprint. Still warm. They kneel beside it, touching the edge. The mud is soft, compressed less than an hour ago. The train isn't gone. It's still traveling. On a loop it can't escape. It's shifting between layers of time, or space, or something we don't understand. Always following the same line. Always appearing when the marsh pulls thin. The passengers haven't aged. They're trapped in the moment they vanished. A gust of wind sweeps through the reeds. The rail hums faintly. The journalist rises and walks away, leaving the track behind. But as they reach the road, they hear it soft, at first, then clearer. A distant whistle, low, mournful, echoing across the marsh. Still traveling aligned, no map will ever show. Still vanishing and returning.